Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Early Bird Pod with Josh Schreiber, Grant McNew, and Nico Sharp. This is the first episode of our Early Bird Pod. We will be discussing the Hyannis Harbor Hawks, what they've been doing recently, maybe have some special guests along the way. But Grant, Nico, how are you guys doing? Excited to get this first podcast started.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We've talked about this for a couple weeks now, and so now we're finally being able to do it. We're in the production side, so we don't always get to talk about it, talk about the team, and kind of talk about more details. So really excited to be able to do this and join with you guys and really discuss the Harbor Hawks and everything that's going on.
Yeah, like Nico said, we're always in the production side of things, so we don't get to voice our opinions very often. So this is going to be, I think, a really cool thing. And also, hanging out with you guys, so that's always a good time. I really hope that we don't, do a bad job because that would be unfortunate, but I think it'll be a good time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you guys. So in the future, for our listeners and maybe watchers, we're going to try to do 2 podcasts a week. We'll see how that ends up playing out, just depending on if we can get special guests or not. But in this version of the podcast, we're going to just basically recap the games of the week, go over standings, and then at the very end, we're going to give out some awards and try to guess what our awards are. So we hope you guys enjoy it, and we can kind of just get right into it. So the past few games, the Harbor Hawks have been starting to play a little bit better. They're currently sitting right in the middle of the West Division. It's very clustered right in the middle. Cotuit leading at 10-5, and then after them, it's just Hyannis is 7-6-1, Wareham 7-6-2, Bourne 7-7-1. So in terms of points, technically Wareham is in second place, but Hyannis would have a tiebreaker over them if we had the same record. So still a lot of games left to be played. Standings don't exactly mean much right now, but guys, let's just start by going over some of the most recent games. We'll start off with the loss at Cotuit, a 6-1 loss. Grant, want to tell me about that game?
Yeah, that game was it was tough to watch at times. Honestly, you felt like the Harbor Hawks weren't really at their best in Cotuit. Battle of the Barnstable Part 1, and we had to listen to Hey Cotuit a few times, so that was, how that goes.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that was just, it seemed like a poor performance, and you don't want to be too negative about it because stuff like that happens. It's baseball, right? Like, you're going to have a bad game. But yeah, there's really not much else to say other than Cotuit came ready to play, and we just kind of rolled over.
Cotuit's pitching staff was just lights out the whole game. They made some really just outstanding defensive plays and hit an absolute nuke. And really, that kind of just after that homer, it kind of just got out of hand for Hyannis. But Nico, all you.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys both. It just felt like one of those games where we got behind early and it was just too hard to play catch up at that point. And then that's how baseball goes. It's just one of those games where they put up runs early and it just felt like we never were really in the game. They just, once they got the runs early, it just felt like, kind of just, we went quiet and we went silent there for a little bit. So, I mean, it's just one of those games, like Grant, you said, it's baseball. And Josh, going back to that home run, it just kind of felt like it just kind of deflated us early and we never just got that energy to kind of bring it back.
Yeah, so not a whole lot to talk about. One thing I did want to bring up, Jamie Arnold came in as the starter, pitched pretty well, actually. Not quite the same dominance that he's had in the beginning of the season where he was on a ridiculous strikeout pace, but obviously that's not something that's maintainable for a full season. He was at a 21.2 K through 9 at one point. But overall, I think his start went pretty well. What do you guys think?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a guy who's come out of the pen for the most part, and then getting that start and yeah, he got roughed up a little early. They just seemed like they were just on ball. There's a lot of ball to barrel right there. I mean, they just squared him up early. They got to him early, and it just seemed like they were on it. They were on it that day. And like with a guy like
Yep.
Jamie Arnold, who's been almost perfect all year, it just seems like guys just couldn't find barrel against him. I mean, the movement on his pitches, it just seems like the ball just finds a way to miss barrel every time. So just one of those games, like we said earlier, just one of those games where they were on their day and we just weren't.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I love when Nico says ball to barrel because he says it a lot, talking about hitting and pitching. So, but it's so true, right? Like you're just finding the barrel. But yeah, I mean, just one of those games, like you said, it's baseball. Sometimes the batters are just seeing the ball well out of your hand, and it's just not your day. That kind of seemed to be what was going on there.
Yeah, and I also just want to shout out Jamie Arnold because we're talking like he had an off day. He only gave up 2 earned runs, so it's not like he got lit up. That's just kind of the expectations we have for him, just on how absolutely dominant he's been this season. But with that being said, don't want to spend too much time on this game because that next game against Katuitt the very next night at McKeon Park was one of the greatest baseball games I have ever watched.
Yeah, but not from the beginning, which is interesting
No.
because through what 8 innings, 7 or 8 innings, it felt like, oh man, here we go again, right? But we've seen the Harbor Hawks, over and over again, seem to love to play from behind, which is interesting. But when you do have an identity like that, even if it is, fighting your way back into games, like that's big, having an
Yeah.
identity as a team. And so seeing Hyannis pull through in that insane 9th inning and then taking over in the 10th was just awesome.
Yeah, no question. It just felt like again, it just felt like it was happening again. But all year we've seen the Hawks work from behind, but it always seemed to be close run games. We never seemed out of it in most games. 2 run games, 1 run games, but just having the night before us losing 6-1, it just felt like here we go. Offense just wasn't there, weren't producing kind of all night. Once again, so it just felt like again like one of those nights, and it just going to the ninth, it just felt like we hadn't gotten much offensive momentum going. So it just felt like, oh, okay, well, we'll ready for tomorrow. And then all of a sudden it was just, hey, get it to the next guy. Hey, get it to the next guy. Hey, I'm gonna get a hit. They just trust the guys behind them, and that's just what it was. It was single, 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 double. It just kind of just fed, and the ball got rolling, and it just felt like, okay, we're in this. This is happening. And then all of a sudden the beliefs start coming, and then everyone, the crowd that was still there, they could feel it. They could feel that energy building and building, and then, I mean, it was a magical moment. It was amazing. What a game.
Yeah, and it was really cool to see too the Hawks' first gut check of the season. You lose, like you said, 6-1 to a team that, quite honestly, you don't like very much, right? So seeing how they came out and reacted was that was big. That was really big, I think, for the program, especially for this season. And like you said, just that belief. They weren't hitting home runs to get back into the game. That's what's crazy is that
Yeah.
it was single, single, double, single, double. That's just advanced baseball. That's playing the game gritty, and that's what we saw.
Yeah, and I don't remember which one of you I was talking about this with, but like in situations like that in the bottom of the ninth inning during that comeback, one of the things that I love about the Cape League is every single one of those players coming up to the plate in those situations is the player that their respective schools would have wanted coming up to the plate, 1 through 9, every single one of them, even the bench players. They're also those guys on their teams that, you're in this spot, you need a base hit to stay alive. That's the guy you want at the plate. And that's what's so incredible about the Cape League, because not only are the hitters those guys, but so are the pitchers. Like, you want those pitchers coming in to lock down games, and the high quality of play sometimes comes across as, like, you could say sloppy baseball at times, or just like during the struggles you want to be like, what is going on? But you have to remember that every single team on the Cape recruited guys that were the very top of their game at their respective schools. And if they weren't Division 1, they were likely among the best Division 2, Division 3, NAIA pitchers in the entire league. So this is incredibly high quality baseball that's being played, and I think it was on full display in that 9th and 10th inning.
And something that I do want to mention too is the pitching staff, right? We gave up runs early, and as the bullpen came in, it was Michael Rodriguez who came in and held them there. That comeback doesn't happen if our bullpen guys kind of come in and just like, all right, well, we're down. Let me just eat up some innings and just go. No, but they held them to that spot and allowed our offense to come back in that game. Because without our bullpen shutting it down and really just stopping it there at 6 runs, I mean that magical moment, that magical game doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely right, Nico. Um, any standout things from that game? Obviously, Gavin Cash drove in
Yep.
the winning run, had another big hit in there. Will Taylor had a 2-run double, I believe it was, right over the first baseman's head that turned into 3 runs after an error. That's what tied it up. Overall, just really a team effort. You mentioned Michael Rodriguez. Obviously, we don't want to go too in depth on players just because we're going to give out some awards later on. But um, yeah, I think we can kind of move on to the next game where we're at Bourne. Not really sure if maybe it's just kind of a letdown game after playing a ridiculous end of the game where you're kind of just like on top of the world after that one. You have the Hawks screeching for several minutes after the
Way
game.
too long.
Way too long.
But yeah, let's move on to Bourne. Just briefly mention it. Obviously, again, not their best game. Gave up 11 runs. I think through the 6th inning, they had as many errors as they had hits and runs combined. So certainly not a game where they were absolutely locked in the field. What were some of your takeaways in that game? We could start with you, Nico.
Yeah, it's just one of those games where it was a little sloppy early, but I mean it's so hard to come back after a night that we had the late night, and it's just that feeling, like it just feels like whenever you have a big game like that, whether it's I mean we also saw it in the Florida LSU series. Florida scores, breaks the record for hits and just goes crazy. And you have a big offensive night, big wow, like just seems like you're on top of the world, and then it just flips. It's just so hard to
Yeah.
be repetitive in that and have those kind of big nights and come back and do it again. And it just felt like that's what happened there. It just felt, think like we're still like it was just a long night, and then it was just hard to kind of flip the switch back and say, okay, now let's go and do it for another 9. So it just kind of felt like one of those games, but yeah, I just felt like we were kind of just a little bit out of it throughout.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Nico. And you also have to take into fact that, hey, the Bourne Braves are also a very good baseball team loaded with incredible talent. And, technically they're fourth in the West, right? But also they're basically tied for second. Um, so you have to take that into account, as well as the fact that, well, there may be some Pee Wee coaches that would want to really hurt me for saying this, but you can't expect to play your best game night in and night out. Like, that's just not going to happen. It's unrealistic, especially when you're playing 4 or 5 nights a week, right? If not
Yeah.
more. So, I mean, yes, 4-11, not a good ball game, not one that you want to, dwell on for too long, but also, like we talked about in the Katuitt loss, sometimes the barrel's just finding the ball for the other team. You have to, I think, look at the fact that you still scored 4 runs. And in a lot of these games, that's enough to at least keep you in it, if not win, especially with the way that our bullpen has been pitching, with the way that our defense has been finding the ball with their gloves so well. I think obviously you're not happy with an 11-4 loss, but you can take away things that say, okay, we're okay. Like, we're fine.
Yeah, and Bourne is also a team right now that is red hot.
Yes.
They are just getting some of their best players to the Cape. Obviously, Derek Bender, the one who had, I will say, it was a fake cycle because his home run did bounce short of the wall, at least as far as we could tell, but was ruled a home run. And even with that being said, having 2 doubles, a triple, and a single in a game is absolutely an incredible feat. He's been having a ridiculous start to his summer. So Derek Bender, definitely a player to watch for the rest of the season. But Bourne is the hottest team in the Cape right now. Them and Harwich probably. 7-3 in their last 10 games. Started off the season 0-4-1, and really since then they've just gotten it going. So again, a tough team to play, coming off by far the best win of your season and
Yeah.
maybe the best win in team history.
I mean, I've always said this, especially like even when growing up, I'd rather play a good team than a hot team, especially when the hot team is already good. So that's kind of what you ran into if you're Hyannis. And a little fun fact: I know the other two hosts here of this podcast can see this, but for the fans that maybe aren't looking at it, Bourne right now is the only team in the Cape Cod League with a 2-win streak active. Everyone else has won or they've lost games, including Falmouth, who's lost 5 in a row.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it kind of shows like the competitiveness in the Cape League where any day you could just have a couple players have great days like we've seen with Cam Smith recently where he was really the difference maker in their win against Falmouth, which we're going to get to in a little bit. But I think we can move on. Obviously, the next game against Orleans was postponed. So that brings us to a very, very strange game against Wareham.
Yeah, definitely a strange game, but I mean, the weather was good. We were worried about a little bit of rain. It rained the past couple of days. That's obviously why the game got postponed previously. But yeah, weather was good. It was a good. It felt like a good game. I mean, it was a close game, and we've seen it. If we're in a 1-2 run game, I feel like everyone's comfortable that the Harbor Hawks are gonna come out on top because we've played in those situations before, time in time out, and we just seem to find a way to win those games. And yeah, I mean, just so the fog's coming in, and we're kind of confused on like what it was at first. I mean, we're like, it was. I mean, but yeah, a lot of fog, and it kept getting worse and worse. And if you guys didn't see our center field camera for the viewers, I mean, it was, you couldn't really see very well. I mean, it was getting bad, and then obviously we're down 2-1, tying run on second base, routine pop fly, and we go to our camera, and the center fielder's just looking up, hands up, and we're like, he can't see it, and then so we score the run, we tie it up, and immediately we're all kind of looking around like, wow, like that just happened. Umpires come in, all converse, and they're like, yeah, I mean, it's not safe. That's a safety hazard. You can't have a player not see the ball. That's kind of a very much importance of the game. So without seeing the ball, there's not much of a game. So yeah, obviously, I mean, I think they made the right decision and call it right there.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of being down by the field while they were, when that fly ball happened. I was fixing a camera. So I got to hear the fans' opinions on it. And there was a lot of, well, this is Cape Cod. We got to play through this. This is just the way it is. And, in the moment, you're thinking, yeah, baseball, right? But no, like you have to call that game. You have to call that. I mean, you're not able to see the ball. You're not able to know if it's gonna hit you in the face or whatever. So yeah, I think it was the right call to call it. And honestly, Hyannis snuck away with a tie there because if that's not a foggy night, that ball is gonna be caught 10 times out of 10. So honestly, pretty happy with what happened that night.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Hyannis, they really, something did start to click a little bit. They were putting bat to ball, as Jacob Irons likes to say, a lot more. And I guess the tie, I think, does benefit Hyannis, though, just because Hyannis is already going into the game. They were 2-0 against Wareham, so any tiebreaker, as long as you don't lose, you're looking pretty good. So definitely ends up benefiting Hyannis in the long run. But yeah, weird game, had to be canceled. And I mean, we saw almost immediately after they called the game, it just continued to get worse as people who were watching our live coverage saw some great interviews with Nick Johnson, our general manager, and some other pretty important people. Again?
A kid?
Yeah, a kid. Some other pretty important people in the Hyannis organization. But yeah, we kept showing the camera angles of like you literally could not see the field from our, like you couldn't see the infield from our center field camera. So definitely not something you want to be playing in. Don't want to spend too much time on that just because it's not really a full game, just ended in a tie. But that leads us to the game against Falmouth, where, guys, this was the first time in a long time that I can remember that Hyannis actually started with the lead, thanks to a leadoff Cam Smith homer.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and it was back-to-back games for Cam Smith. I mean, we kind of spoke about it earlier about like there's like all the differences in the Cape because there's new players, new positions, new guys coming in, some guys going out, and it's just like all figuring out. But you can tell Cam Smith he likes that leadoff spot a little bit. I mean, he obviously in the leadoff spot you're going to see more fastballs, right? And we're seeing it. He's attacking first pitch. I mean, we didn't have. I mean, our broadcast was doing the intro when Cam Smith put it over the wall. First pitch, attacks it early. I mean, he likes that leadoff spot a little bit, and I think that's a danger to every other team in the Cape. I mean, so after that, it's kind of like you can tell like we just felt good about it. The whole game we felt confident. Like you said, we had a lead early. I just like it always felt like we were a run behind or 2 runs behind, but we got ahead early and we kept it. So it just felt really good to be on our side.
Yeah, the Cam Smith leadoff was huge, right? That was a tone setter for the whole game. Of course, like we talked about before, low-scoring games have been common because pitching here is so incredible. Plus, wood bats make a difference, right? So a 3-1 win, obviously, going to be excited about that, if not ecstatic, right? But the Cam Smith leadoff home run was just incredible, and you knew, at least I felt like I knew from there, hey, we're not asleep. Like, we're coming out here ready to play, and that's exactly what we saw.
Yeah, I really don't think the score reflects how well Hyannis played in that game.
Yeah.
They were roping the ball all over the diamond. They manufactured runs, which is something Nico and we were talking about when we went on to the broadcast as Mickey and Michael went up to the Nesson booth. But they finally were able to manufacture runs and not strike out in those big runners in scoring position situations, which honestly, it's just huge. When you're in the Cape League, you got to get every run you can get. Doesn't really matter how you do it. And I mean, we could talk about Cam Smith all day, and we're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about him because we all simultaneously agreed that we were not going to give Cam Smith one of our awards just because of, like, obviously everyone's going to try to give him an award. He's hitting 450 in his last 5 games. He has 2 homers. He's crushing the ball. In this Falmouth game, he was a single away from a cycle. That is not very common for someone to just need a single. Had a homer, triple, double, and he was just crushing the ball all day.
Yeah, and Josh, sorry, go ahead.
While we're on the subject, while we're on the subject, I want to point out the strategy that we've seen from the coaching staff in these games. You'll notice, I think it was a Brody Donay leadoff double in one of the innings, and then we just see like small ball trying to get it into the oppo side, into the right field side, getting him to third. Now, it didn't work out in that instance, but just seeing that, hey, there's real thought going into every at-bat, and I've had a lot of people tell me, oh, it's baseball, you just swing the stick and hope you hit it far. Like, no, like there's real thought going into every single at-bat, every single pitch. So it's been really cool to see just the strategy going into each situation.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to touch on something both of you guys mentioned. It's like, yeah, Josh, we were talking about on air how it felt like every time we scored in the past couple games, it was all crooked numbers, right? Which isn't a bad thing. You always want the most crooked numbers. You always hear that. But it just felt like we couldn't chip away. It wasn't going to be 1 run. It wasn't going to be a base or a double with moving the runner and a sac fly. And we saw that a couple times in that game, which felt like good because we can do both, Like it just felt like it was, okay, double, single, double. It's a big crooked run inning, which is great. We love that, and that needs to keep happening, right? But it just felt like we hadn't seen much of, one base hit and then finding a way to score that 1 run, finding a way to chip away and score 1 run. So just seeing that, remember we talked about on air how great it was. And Grant, like you said, small ball, double, bunt over, and then just little ground ball up the middle for a single or even a ground out for a run. You get the RBI, just small ball, putting the ball in play and forcing the defense to make a play and just moving runners and have really good ABs.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to briefly mention with Cam Smith, Hyannis is going to start needing him to really carry the load along with other players as well. But Billy Amick just was released as he's, he's in the transfer portal. So I assume he's probably looking at schools and stuff like that. But Billy Amick is a big part of that lineup. He's been kind of slotted in at the 2 through 4 spot. They're going to need guys like Cam Smith Brody Donay, Mike Sirota. I mean, the list goes on for guys, anyone to just contribute and provide a little bit of pop to the lineup where, you have a lot of guys that can get some base hits. Who's going to step up and get some of those extra base hits? And we've seen Hyannis put up crooked numbers, but you're going to need to continue to see that with a guy like Billy Amick gone, and of course Ben Williamson, who is preparing for the draft. I mean, it's going to be tough, but they certainly have the personnel to do it.
Yeah, and we've seen specifically Brody Donay. I've really enjoyed watching his progression throughout the season so far. Because you remember he came in from opening day, just seemed like he couldn't quite figure out the wood bat, and now we've seen him. Honestly, he's been just roping. He's been absolutely incredible. Obviously, he was already great behind the plate, probably one of, if not the best catcher in the Cape Cod League right now. But up to bat, he's finally gotten it down, and he's really been a huge part of the lineup lately.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So go ahead, Nico. You have something?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, you can just tell him his swings are just more confident. You can see it. You can see it in his swings and his early in his pitch recognition. You can just tell like he's seeing the ball really well, and I mean it's a scare for everyone else in the Cape because if that guy gets hot with that kind of power, it's gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah. So that is the last 5 games for Hyannis. So now we're gonna start a new segment. I guess everything's a new segment since it's our first show, but a segment that we want to really make the staple of this podcast, and that is awards. So right now we're going to go, all 3 of us going to give out an award. It's going to have some sort of name to it, and then the others will guess what the award is, and then we'll kind of just talk about them. So I don't know if Grant, you want to go first, give out our first award ever?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Feels good. First ever. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, historic.
Big time.
So this award, I think it's going to be a good one. I'm going to go with the and this may give it away a little bit, but I'm going to go with the Scary Award.
The Scary Award.
Mm-hmm.
Scary Award. Okay.
I think I got it. Go ahead, Nico.
Okay. So just based off our previous conversation, I'm gonna have to guess that you're going Donay route. That's my guess. Schreiber, what do you got?
I think it's got to be the man, the myth, the legend, the nightmare, Michael Rodriguez.
It is the nightmare himself, Michael Rodriguez. We've talked so much about the bullpen pitching and how incredible it's been, and he's been that guy that's come in late game situations. He's closed games out. We saw it just last night. He came in, closed out the game. It was incredible because he is incredible. He's been awesome out of North Greenville. So giving it to the nightmare, I think it's perfect for him to be the first ever award given. Let's see, just these last 7 days, this last week, 3 innings pitched, right? Only 2 hits he's allowed, only 2 hits. And I think that's just outstanding. So, yeah, he's going to win the Scary Award, the nightmare.
Yeah, I do want to mention. Sorry, Nico.
No, that's it. That's all I had. Go ahead, Josh.
I do want to mention and apologize to those watching. We do have a little bit of a delay, as you could tell, but Michael Rodriguez has kind of forced himself into the closer role for this team. We saw him close out the Falmouth game. He is scary is a perfect word. He is a menacing human being out there on the mound. That dude is massive. I mean, he throws, coming from a left-hander, he throws really hard. He's a big dude, and his slider is just wipeout. It is so gross to see the action on it, and especially coming to righties, he's able to put it at their back foot with ease, and then, he sets up that pitch with his high fastball that, it may be, 94, 93 miles an hour, but it certainly plays higher than that just with the size and his arm angle that he has.
Yeah, and his 4 strikeouts this last week have really, that says it, for how he's, like you said, been putting it on the back foot of those right-handed batters so well. Not to take away from the other incredible performances that we've seen out of the bullpen, because everybody's been outstanding, but I think not giving an award to one of these bullpen pitchers would be criminal. And
Yeah.
speaking of criminal, he's a nightmare, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And Nico, if you want to just talk a little bit about what he's been able to do from the pitching side as a former D2 pitcher yourself.
Yeah, and I think we just see it time in and time out. A big thing is composure, right? Like, I mean, like you guys said, he's come in and kind of had that closer role. And, he's kind of played in the big spots here and a couple like big holds, and we see him eating up some innings too in that closer role. He's not just doing a typical 3-out save. We've seen him come out for 6 outs. We've seen it kind of change in. So a big thing is composure for him. It's coming in close games because it seems like a lot of these are 1-run, 2-run games. So, I mean, that's been a big thing and been able to lock it down in that moment. So it's been, his, we mentioned his fastball, his slider, being able to work off both those pitches, and big stature, tall guy, he's got that nice downward angle, and you can just tell him, reaches out pretty far. And so it looks like he's throwing the ball half away already. So he's a nightmare for sure. He's a nightmare for hitters. I think that nickname fits perfectly for him.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine having to face him in college because I lost where he goes. My apologies, but just having to face a dude that's the size that he is, throwing from the arm angle that he throws at, just with the stuff that he has, it is ridiculous. And shout out to our analytics team and our baseball ops staff for giving some of these numbers, but I believe it was his first outing. His stuff plus was pretty much among the best. It was him and Jay Driver that were just like, his Michael Rodriguez slider is one of the best singular pitches probably in the entire Cape League. Just the spin rate that he has, and it certainly helps just the movement overall. There's so much horizontal break to it where it's gross.
Yeah, definitely a tough guy to face. Like you said, I mean, his pitches just have so much movement to him. It just feels like, and they tunnel so well. You can just tell hitters just can't get on time with him. So and that's the guy we're excited to see for the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So first award over with. That'll be the Scary Award. I'll keep track of these awards. We'll see. Keep track of the guesses and stuff like that. So I'll give myself a point there for getting it. But
there we go.
We'll keep track of this throughout the season. Nico, you want to give out our next award? Or you want me to go?
Josh, you go. I'm excited to actually hear yours.
All right. So my first award of all time is going to be the He Can Do That award.
Ooh.
Josh, I like this one. I like it.
That's a tough one.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. I've got a guess. I don't think it's a very good guess, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm going to go with Eric Snow.
Okay.
Because we saw him pull in triples out of what should have been just stand-up doubles.
Okay, good guess. Nico?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, yeah, I feel like it's not going to be right, but I feel like a Sirota, just seeing what he's done and, in the time he's been here, he came late and, we didn't know really what to expect. He came in late and immediately made a crazy impact. So, I mean, that's kind of where my mind's going.
All right. Love the guesses. I stumped you both. This is different side of the ball. We're going Cade Obermueller.
Oh.
Cade Obermueller.
Oh. Wow.
Obermueller has sneakily had a fantastic introduction to the Cape League. In his first career appearances, 5.1 innings, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts, 0 runs at all. 0 earned runs, good for a 0.00 ERA. And where the he can do that award comes in, if you look at first of all, if you're listening, give Hyannis Harbor Hawks Analytics, their Twitter account, a follow. They post some amazing stuff. But Obermueller is sitting around 93, 94 miles an hour, which is among the fastest pitch velocity on Hyannis. And not only that, but he also has among the best spin rates on the entire team with his slider. He is just doing it all. And he's not the biggest guy. When we're talking about comparing Cade Obermueller to Michael Rodriguez, I think Michael Rodriguez could eat Cade Obermueller for breakfast, quite literally. Cade Obermueller is not the biggest guy, but he throws hard. He has nasty stuff. And I'm sorry if you're listening, Cade. Love your game. Just saying, compared to a guy like Michael Rodriguez, there is quite a comical size difference there.
I'm sorry to Rodriguez. Oh my goodness.
No, they're both. Two of my favorite players on this team. Honest to God, they are unbelievable. But Cade Obermueller comes out there and is just mowing down hitters one after one after one, and it's just incredible to watch. He's only given up 1 hit so far on the year in 5.1 innings. He's only come in on relief. I wouldn't be surprised if they give him some starts, but this dude can shove. He is absolute nails, and I can't wait to see what he does. I think he could have a huge part in the rest of the season with guys like Thaniel Trumper and Jay Driver now off the roster. Obviously, I know Jay Driver, draft eligible, missed a couple days earlier on going to the combine, but man, this Cade Obermueller guy, I think it could be a crazy 1-2 punch, 2 lefty relievers in Michael Rodriguez and Cade Obermueller.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, shout out to our analytics team because when I saw those numbers, it just like I want this guy to be on this podcast. I wanted to see what his mentality is and even look at pitching grips and stuff like that because when you talk about spin rates, a lot of pitchers have different ways they hold it or maybe they have their little thing. You're seeing a lot of new styles. Whether it's on a fastball you tuck the thumb under. People are they're just so much going on and so much development and everything going on. So when I saw obviously a high velocity guy with a crazy spin rate on a slider, so just stuff like that. It's just I don't know. It's really exciting to see and a guy who we're just getting to see a couple appearances from. So really want to get this guy on the podcast and just talk baseball. Kind of talk and see what it was like for him. How he developed the pitches and how he got to where he is now, especially.
I love hearing Nico talk about baseball because it just every single time it reminds me, oh, that guy played actual baseball, right? So
yeah.
But no, I agree with everything you said. I would love to have him on to go through those pitching grips and things like that because my curveball needs a little bit of work before I can really hit him with it. So yeah.
Absolutely. And another thing I want to mention about Cade Obermueller as I'm going through his bio for the Iowa Hawkeyes, he is not even 20 years old yet. He's 19 years old. Almost all of our broadcast interns are older than him. Grant,
Almost.
Are you? Yeah, almost. You're the only one younger than him, I believe. Yes. But I mean, he's 5'11". He's listed at 5'11", 150, and he's throwing 94, 95 miles an hour. The amount of arm talent on this kid is ridiculous. He's coming from a low 3/4 angle from a left-handed pitcher to throw that hard. I can't imagine when he gets to be. I mean, if he may get drafted earlier than a senior, but when he gets to be a junior. Imagine how hard he's going to be able to throw and how nasty he's going to be. I think this is a serious candidate for a top level MLB draft pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Just I know a young guy too. And like you said, that's a guy you got to watch. That's a guy you got to watch, and
He's
already showing up
19.
these
Yeah.
impressive numbers. It's crazy. He's Grant's age. He's a kid. It's crazy. It's unbelievable that these young at 19 years old, and you're putting up some of the better numbers in the Cape. So I mean, you guys said, I mean, this is a guy to watch, no question.
Yeah, so I'm not too upset over the comp there. I feel like if he's anybody as a broadcaster, it's got to be me, right?
Oh
Um, you
yeah.
said you said he's 19, 5'11", what 150. I
Yep.
stand about 5'10", 145, right? And I'm not a big guy, so that is insane. Just how well his arm movement is, how he's got that velocity, how he just works the angles, even with the elbow cocking back and going. That's just one of those things that if you've got it, you've got it, and he does. But yeah, seeing him build up through college, if he puts on another 10, 15 pounds, Lord only knows what he's going to be able to do.
Yeah. So there is our second award, Cade Obermuller picking that one up. No points for you guys on that one, so I'll take a. I feel good about my first award. We'll just say that. But Nico, how about you end us off?
All right, so my award is just like the little eyes emojis. Just the kind of like just like the
Okay.
eyes. It's just gonna be that. So just put that in your head. Go for it.
Like their eyes are popping out, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just the eyes emoji. I can send you guys a reference if needed,
Okay.
and also
No,
let me
I
see.
think I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
You're gonna make me try to figure out how to put that into our ledger here on my notes app,
Yeah.
but gotcha. I'll just write eyes emoji. Okay.
I'm gonna go Brody Donay here.
Yeah, I'm Brody Donay.
Every single time he throws down to second, that's exactly the face I make.
Yeah, or ropes a ball 100+ miles an hour.
Yeah.
Boom. Points for you guys both. Well done. Well done. I mean,
Yeah.
well done. Well done. Because I mean, for more than just that, but also something I looked into, I wanted to like dig into is his age. You guys just talked about it just there, but I mean, he was born in 2003, guys. 2003, right? So he's
Good year.
19, 20 years old, and yeah, he's a youngin. But this guy is 6'5", 6'5", 215, and he just came out of his freshman year. And so that's one thing why I chose the eye emoji. But then it's kind of a guy like he's figuring it out. He's seeing the ball well, so he's kind of catching your eye a little bit. You're seeing the more confident at bats, and you're kind of like, okay, like if this guy gets hot, like it's because in the past 7 days, he's hitting 400. He's turning around. His slugging percentage is 600. He's seeing the ball well, and you're seeing it in his swings and his ABs and the way he takes a pitch. It's an active take. He's seeing the ball. He's watching it travel. It's I don't know. It's just like as this guy just in the past week, it's just he's seeing the ball. It's scary for the other teams because with that power, and we kind of talked about at the end before our segment started. So it's kind of unfortunate you guys beat me to it. But yeah, I mean that power, it's scary. And so and you see that the way he throws down, the way he blocks, it's his whole game kind of just like it's that eye emoji. Okay, like I gotta keep an eye on this guy.
Yeah, I like that. And you talked about how big he is, standing 6'5". That's not a tender 6'5". Like he is really 6'5". You know what I'm saying? So like seeing him walk up and just finally be as dominant as we thought he could be, it's so cool. It's awesome. Like you said, born 2003. All the best people are, by the way, born in 2003. But yeah, it's so cool to see him go out there and perform at a level that we expected, honestly. But then he's also wowing us every time he touches the ball.
Yeah, I want to add, like, Brody Donay, and when it comes to analytics, he is an analytics freak. He is, in terms of the Cape League, it just came out, he has by far the hardest throw down to second at over 90 miles an hour. Nobody else was, I believe the next closest was around 86, 87. So he is in a different league in that mindset, but also he's hitting the ball harder than anyone on the Cape as well. He's hitting the ball like anywhere between 100 to 107 miles an hour off the bat, as he's 20 years old now. This is a guy that is going to be a top level draft pick at some
Yeah.
point, especially as a catcher. I would not be surprised if he went first or second round. This dude is a freak of nature. I wish that we had TrackMan working for that Falmouth game, because his double, I mean, off the bat was just like,
Launched it.
yeah, if he had a better launch angle there, that would have been hit 440 feet. Like he has ridiculous power. We saw it in Fenway Park for their that scouting, I don't know, scouting trip, I guess we can call it.
Yeah.
He was launching balls over the monster. It was just ridiculous. He's going to be, I think, an MLB level player. Just, it's ridiculous what he can do on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and we've gotten to see him. Obviously, you talked about him having the hardest thrown ball to second from his knees, right? He's throwing 90 miles an hour. That's not something you see every day. Like, that is so cool to be able to see somebody do that. And, analytics animal, like you said, just crushes the ball every time he sees it. As it stands right now, I think he's a top 5 player in the Cape. And then as he progresses, once he finally has those launch angles like really locked in, like I think we're going to see, he'll be top 2, and I don't think he'll be number 2.
Yeah,
Totally
absolutely.
with you there, Grant. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. And so
Go ahead.
that we're kind of covering is power, right? So when you think of power, you think of a guy who may not be, may not take the great pitches, but when you have all that power, but then you have a guy who's top 3 on the team on the active roster with on base percentage. He's finding ways on that's not just power, not just doubles. He's working walks. He's getting base hits. So I mean that it shows like the complete player. Because that's something you a lot of times you don't see both. You get power or you get on base percentage. He's one of those guys that's shown he has both. And like you guys said, I mean his stats are showing for himself. And then you look at the guy's stats. I mean that's a huge catcher behind the plate. And
Yeah.
just as athletic he is back there, it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch.
yeah, his last 4 games, obviously a very small sample size, 4 for 10 with a 1.133 OPS, just ridiculous. And also leads the team in walks in that span with 4. So, like you said, Nico, getting on base, and at 6'5", he's not a slow guy. He can run a little bit, and that's something you never see out of a catcher. The thing I'm interested in is, will whatever team he gets drafted by keep him as a catcher, just for, I don't know, like injury concerns or whatever you want to say. But I think he's certainly good enough to be a catcher at the next level. It's just a matter of, do you want to preserve that bat and stick him in a corner? But I mean, we could talk all day. We don't have all day, but we could talk all day about Brody Donay and just how excited we are about his future this season and in seasons to come. So with that being said, I think that will conclude our first episode of the Early Bird Pod. We hope you all enjoy it. Feel free to leave us any feedback you'd like. Maybe we can incorporate some of your ideas into the podcast. Hopefully, coming soon, we'll get some special guests, interviews with some cool people. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you later.